Hey Ottawa, this is your Monday market snapshot for the Ottawa real estate market for Monday, April 1st, 2024. My name is Annalie Rice. I'm a realtor here in Ottawa, and every week I bring you the details of what's going on in the Ottawa real estate market. So although today is April Fool's Day and I've managed to stay prank-free from my kids, today is also a special day for something else. So today is the Royal Canadian Air Force's 100th birthday, and you may or may not realize, but I was in the Air Force for over 22 years. So these are just a few of the pictures of the things that I did. I traveled around the world, literally, on a ship, and from the North Pole and all over, and I flew helicopters. That's the helicopter I flew. And it was a exciting time. I enjoyed my time, and I'm really enjoying also the time after the military and after the Air Force. But I have to give a shout out to all those who are still serving in our Royal Canadian Air Force, celebrating 100 years today. Okay, so let's get to the stats. Citywide, we have a slight increase in the number of active listings, just up by 19, and it was really just detached and a couple townhomes. For the sales, we're up a little bit, which is what I expected when I was saying last week. It was sort of like the March break dip, and then this is the pickup week. Expect next week could be slightly lower just because there were fewer listings this week, and a lot of people would have taken this weekend off shopping. So yes, although the sales are up slightly, it may not take off as much next week. Okay, so our inventory, we see that it's still slightly climbing, although it does seem to be not climbing quite as quickly, which means we're sort of reaching that balance point or sort of an inflection point, perhaps. The conditional sales this week were up, as were slightly the sales. Okay, so for the new listing breakdown, we had 369 new listings this week, and 64 of those were relisted properties. That was 17%, and the remainder, so that's 305, were new to the market listings. So you can see it's sort of been up, down the last few weeks with March break and now Easter. Expect that we're going to see an increase going ahead for the next probably a good month. We're going to see increases of not only listings, but also I would suspect that sales will start picking up. Okay, so for sales this last week, we had 19% of the properties that sold this week sold with no conditions, so it's still sitting around that 20% mark, and 32%, which is slightly lower than the last few weeks, sold at or above asking price. So then when I break it down into the sales within 7 days, 17% of the sales, that was 40 properties, sold within 7 days. Now, over half of those, 53%, sold with no conditions, and 65%, so just shy of 2/3, sold at or above asking price. For those properties selling within 30 days, 71% of the properties, and that percentage is definitely higher this week, 71% sold within 30 days. 71% of the properties that sold this week were ones that had been on for 30 days or less, and 19% of those with no conditions, which is the average, and 39% at or above asking price. Okay, so for zooming into the different areas, but please don't leave until after this because I will have the month end details for the charts and stats for March. Central urban region, we had just slight increases of inventory for detached and condos, and sales are actually up across property types and most especially for the condos this week. In Canada and Stittsville, we see an increase for the detached and towns, but a 25% drop in the number of active listings for condos. And for the sales, they were up slightly for detached and towns and down slightly for condos. Okay, so in Barrhaven and Riverside South, we have a slight increase in the number of detached homes on the market, pretty steady for towns and condos, and the sales of townhomes climbed and we're down slightly for detached and condos. And finally, for Orleans, we see that there was a increase for the number of townhomes on the market, a drop for detached, which is not a bad thing because there's a lot of detached homes there on the market, and pretty steady for condos. Sales were up across property type, and most notably there that you can see the detached did climb, so that explains the drop in active listings. Okay, so here's the full details for detached homes, and I didn't highlight them this week, but there still are those 5 properties that are listed downtown, pulling up the central urban and city-wide active price. Check out my video from last week if you want the details on that. Here are the townhomes and for condos. Okay, so here is the month-to-month stuff, and then I'll get into all the charts. We have month-to-month average sale prices from February to March 2024, and you can see that across all the different property types except for condo row townhomes, the average sale price this past month was up quite significantly, but close to 4 or 5, and in the case of semi-detached, it was 10% up. Now, if you haven't already checked it out, please go check out my video about stats and explaining a little bit about the difference between using average prices versus benchmark prices and why averages aren't exactly the perfect thing. I've mentioned it many times here, but there's a lot of volatility. It depends on what exactly is selling. There's a lot of variety in semi-detached homes. That explains a lot of it, but the same house isn't going to sell for 10% higher month to month. It's just that what sold was 10% higher priced than what sold last month. But as you can see, the prices are up, and we'll move on to see the chart forms. So this one is the detached, and you can see the black lines. That's the first 3 little bundles of bars. So the last 3 months, we've seen steadily increasing sale prices, average sale prices, still well below what we had in 2022, which is that lone bar that's quite high. But we can see that the prices are climbing. That's very typical, as you see, in a spring market. And here is the semi-detached. You can see that there's a lot more volatility, that the prices are sometimes up or down, and that although this month was higher, it could very well drop down again next month. Okay, and so this is for the townhomes. So this is freehold townhomes. You can see slight increase from last month, although it was down slightly from the month before there. And you can see, again, we're still well below what we saw in 2022, but doing well as per the last few years. This is all of the condos. I did not separate out the row condos and apartment condos. And again, condos are one of those things that is a lot more volatile. It depends on what is selling. There's luxury condos and budget condos. And so you can see that we've had 3 months of slight increases of average prices. Okay, so here I'm going to get into the different charts, which sort of give us some indications of how the market is going. So far I've talked about the average prices going up, which is very normal for spring market. We're having a bit of an earlier spring market than is typical, but it is spring, the market is picking up. Prices typically do go up when more homes sell. And so far the list prices are staying quite realistic. People aren't underpricing to try and blow the prices out. So here is the closed price to the original list price ratio, and you can see that for all 3 property types that they're selling closer to 100%, so 98.7 for detached, 99.2 for townhomes, and 98.3 for condos over this last month. And so for all 3 property types, it climbed. So with a little bit more competition, more bids, more people interested in homes, they tend to sell closer to the asking price, closer to or at or above potentially the asking price. So you've seen that I've been sharing the percentages of homes selling at or above asking price, and we were kind of sitting at the 30% mark. So with 30% of the homes selling at or above asking price, the rest selling below, but the average is pulling up closer to that. Okay, so the next one is average days to sell. We can see that the average days to sell has come down across property types. We're down into the between 20 and 30 days, closer to 30 for condos, but 23 days for detached and townhomes. I'm actually surprised that the townhomes is quite that high. They seem to be a little bit quicker. Now, this is the properties, these are the properties that are selling. So when we're looking at the charts that I share weekly, and you see how many days on market or cumulative days on market, that's the CDOM, you'll see that those are still up in the like 40s, 50s for the ones that are listed. But the ones that are actually selling are the ones they list, they sell, and being under 30 days makes sense because we're seeing that the vast majority of homes now are selling within the first 30 days, most of them, right? So this week it was 71% of the homes that sold within the first 30 days. And we know that a good 20% of them are selling within that first week. So that's where we come up with these averages. Okay, so this is the monthly sales, the number of sales within the City of Ottawa boundaries for the last 10 years for residential and condominium. You can see the black line, which is 2024, is above the dark blue line, which was 2023. And so although, yes, we're starting out with a better year than what we had last year, I do want to caution that the number of sales is still very, very low. We don't expect it to be at what we were at for 2021, 2022, which are those purple lines near the top that are like, blowing the, like way off the top of the chart there. But it would be nice to be a little bit closer to the average, or, on the higher end of the average. When you consider that comparing to things from like 10 years ago, there were a lot fewer homes in the City of Ottawa 10 years ago. So we should be higher than the normal, like, up until 2017, 2018, we should be up at around the latter parts of the last decade there. We don't need to be record-setting high numbers, but the market is still cautious. Buyers are still being very cautious, and this is showing up in the number of properties that are selling. Okay, so the months of inventory, I've mentioned this many times, but the months of inventory is the number of months it would take to sell all of the current inventory if no more properties came on the market, and you're going by the same number of sales that are happening in that month. So we can see that in all property types, that months of inventory is coming down. So that despite we've had like a lot more inventory, as we've seen, we're well above the inventory levels we were at last year. Sales are slightly higher, but inventory is quite a bit higher. So I'm actually surprised that the months of inventory dropped as they did. I don't expect them to get as low as we've seen maybe even last summer, because the inventory was very low last spring. So it probably is reaching near the bottom unless sales pick up a whole lot. If we continue to have inventory coming on the market to levels that we saw last fall and through the winter there, and sales don't pick up substantially, then the months of inventory won't continue to drop. It'll sort of steady out kind of around that 2 months or so. It's still a tight market, still better for sellers than buyers. It's still competitive in certain areas, but hopefully we're not going to get down to like the less than 1 or anything like that. I don't want sales to pick up like that. That's when you get real pressure on the sales prices, and nobody wants the prices to go up drastically for everybody. Nobody wants 2022 prices, except for those who maybe bought in 2022. Okay, so this is the months of inventory, just a citywide, all property types. You can see that it is dropping. You can see how low it was through like 2020, all the way through early 2022. Even in the winter, it was only getting up to like 1 month of inventory. That was a crazy, hectic market. We're still comfortably above 2. Again, this is citywide, all property types. A certain property type in a certain desirable areas may be very quick and selling very quickly and no inventory on the market. But when we're looking at this is citywide. So again, we're still in the seller's market, but it's not the frantic, crazy seller's market that we saw through the pandemic years. Okay, so that was my update for this week. It included lots of the charts and details for the month of March. And again, I will update those again next week. I took this data last night. It was just March 31st. And so there will be some sales and such that get recorded in the early days of this week. And I'll also include the board data as it comes out, and perhaps I'll include what CREA releases and such. So Stay tuned for a little bit of an update on the monthly stuff come next week, but I hope you have a fantastic week. And if you have any questions, please drop me a message or get in touch. Have a great week.